Ilalom, 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 Ilalom,
Hi, Lee.
Hi, Lana.
Look at this amazing crowd.
Wow.
Woo!
Greetings. Thank you all tonight. And congratulations to our two candidates, Kelly Brough and Mike Johnston. Thank you for spending this time with us. I'm Lee McNeil. I'm a member of Shorter Community AME Church, and it is my honor that I serve as the president of the board for Together Colorado. I also serve on the Transforming Justice team.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ilana Steinberg, and I am honored and thrilled to welcome you to Congregation Rodef Shalom, my spiritual home. Yes! With our social justice team, Rodfei Tzedek, which stands for Pursuers of Justice, I serve on the affordable housing team of Together Colorado.
And as your MCs tonight, we are excited as to what this evening has in store. Before we jump into the conversations with our two candidates, we thought we'd get you a little warmed up and energized a bit. So, raise your hand if you believe you deserve to have a say in the future of Denver.
Raise your hand if you believe in the human dignity of every individual.
Raise your hand if you will vote and encourage your friends and neighbors to vote in the runoff election. And to Kelly and Mike, see, you're not the only one answering questions.
So, it is the season for mayoral forums, and we're guessing that some of you have even been to one or more already. We think tonight's forum is unique, and here's why. Our questions for the candidates are grounded in the values that Together Colorado holds dear. These values are deeply and proudly rooted in our core identity as a multi-faith, multi-race organization. And before each question tonight, you will hear testimonials and real experiences from Denver residents, providing a foundation from which each question arises.
So here is what will happen tonight. After a faith reflection, you will hear a bit more about who and what Together Colorado is and about our vision for Denver. Then we will be back to share our purpose in convening this forum. We should note that in addition to Together Colorado's committees, we are joined tonight by representatives from SEIU Local 105 and Students Demand Action from East High School, as well as many other partners. After brief introductions from Kelly and Mike, each of our constituents will present a testimony followed by a question for the candidates. We will finish off the evening with a call to action for all of us and a closing prayer.
We want tonight to be both meaningful and fun. To that end, we ask that everyone, candidates, speakers, and audience members, treat each other with respect and kindness. Keep it friendly.
Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Many of our over 200-member congregations have been a part of the planning and organizing of this forum, and we want to give them a quick shout out before the night begins. Please hold your applause until we've named all of them. Congregation Rodef Shalom, Augustana Lutheran Church, Montview Boulevard Presbyterian Church, Trinity United Methodist Church, St. John's Episcopal Cathedral, Shorter Community AME Church, Cure d'Ars Catholic Church, St. Ignatius Loyola Catholic Church, First Universalist Church of Denver, New Hope Baptist Church, St. Barnabas Episcopal, and Kirk of the Bonnie Bray. Give our hands up. We sincerely want to thank the many more congregations and partners who helped us create this beautiful forum. And we want to thank everyone at Congregation Rodef Shalom for making this forum possible. Thank you.
And now it is my pleasure to introduce my rabbi and my friend, Rabbi Rachel Kobrin, spiritual leader of Congregation Rodef Shalom, to offer a faith reflection.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's so great to see all of you here. So when the people of Israel were leaving slavery, they left in haste. And they walked and they walked and they walked until they came to the sea. And then as they stood there, they looked at the sea in front of them and they realized that they could not swim. And they listened and they heard in back of them the sounds of the horses, the sounds of Pharaoh and his men coming after them. And they knew that there was no way to turn around and go back. Going back was not an option. Going forward was the only way. But they looked at that water and they were scared, as all of us would have been. But Nachshon, as the Midrash tells us, as the stories that surround our Torah tells us, jumped in. He walked in and he walked and he walked as the sea came up and closer, and finally it parted and all of the people were able to walk and run and dance to their freedom. But it took Nachshon to have the courage to walk forward, to be brave and to be a leader. Jumping into the waters, that is brave. Stepping up as a leader with vision, with fortitude, and with determination, that is brave. Stepping out as a leader and pledging to bring others through the waters with you, that is bravery. Our job this evening is to commend both of these candidates, each of you, for being thoughtful, visionary, brave candidates, for being here and leading us, for wanting to lead us, for stepping forward even when it was scary and being a nachshon and saying, I can do it. Our job, first and foremost, is to commend you for having that courage. And our job also is to discern what it means to follow a leader and to go through the waters that we so desperately want to do here in Denver. Our job also is to be like Miriam, who when she ran from slavery, was actually able to look forward and see that there would be a time in the future for celebration. And so instead of just packing the necessary belongings, she packed her tambourines and she packed her drums because she knew that when she got to the other side of that water, she would dance and sing in celebration. We face many profound challenges here in Denver, but we must believe that through quality leadership and through our commitment to activism and organizing, we can make this city the city that we dream it can be. May our candidates each be blessed with wisdom of heart and mind, with honest reflection, with compassion, with fearless determination, with creative action, and with a commitment to justice. And may we be blessed, each and every one of us who is here tonight to listen, may we be blessed with the capacity to listen deeply, to discern wisely, and to believe in the future of our city. May we have the wisdom to know that the journey is never really over. May we elevate our fundamental truths through our actions, through our voices, and through our ability to vote. And may we remember to gather our drums and gather our tambourines so that we can dance and sing together when we make it to the other side. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Hello, good evening. I'm Brell Albert from St. John's Episcopal Cathedral, and I am a member of the Vision for Denver Mayoral Forum planning team. Together Colorado represents statewide community organizations leading a faith and race solidarity movement. And we are a 501c3 nonpartisan organization. So we cannot support or oppose any candidate for public office. We unlock the power of people through faith-driven community organizing to bring human dignity to the center of public life in Colorado. We have a radical commitment to developing, training, and equipping leaders to build power to effectively dismantle systems of structural racism and rebuild our beloved community. We aspire to make the way for a Colorado where our government and society reflect a place where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, regardless of what we look like, what's in our wallets, or who we love. A Colorado where everyone is welcomed and feels safe, no matter their identity. Over the past 6 months, Together Colorado congregations have engaged hundreds of people across the city to create a new vision for Denver. Here's what we came up with. Our faith compels us to create a moral and communal economy. Our faith teaches us that all people are valuable and unique. Our life together is governed by systems and structures that promote our collective welfare as a sacred community. As people of faith, we believe safe communities trust in the power of relationships. Safe communities put their resources and community dollars into affordable housing, grocery stores, good schools, places to play, and quality health care, including easy access to mental health services. We have a vision for Denver where everyone has clean air to breathe and water to drink, has access to high-quality education, and has access to shelter and housing. A vision for Denver with a law enforcement system that embodies racial justice and restoration with strong investments in mental health, housing, and youth activity, where immigrants are welcomed and cared for, housed, and given job opportunities in our communities. Loving and diverse neighborhoods and communities with strong relationships among people, with children dreaming, laughing, playing, learning, and being safe. And where development prioritizes people. As faith-led leaders, we dedicate ourselves to transforming Denver into a community committed to a long-term agenda that creates structural and racial equity, builds people's control of the government, builds community control of the economy, and expands the public sphere. And now I'm happy to turn it back over to Lee McNeil and Ilana Steinberg to hear the purpose of our gathering tonight.
Thank you, Brough. Thank you, Brough. We are excited to have all of you joining us. Our purpose tonight is to learn more about Mike and Kelly and how each would govern if elected. By allowing them to share their thoughts and ideas with us, ultimately, we hope to discover the values that drive each of them. Tonight, we also hope to plant seeds for the relationship we envision with Denver's next mayor. Together, Colorado has embarked on a campaign to build a relationship of accountability and co-governance with our elected officials. And we want to ensure that the next Denver mayor is governing with the values of their constituents in the forefront.
So, what is core governance? We define core governance as a relationship in which we, as a community, are at the center of democracy, where we, as residents of Denver, are part of the process and solution, where we collaborate as full partners with our elected leaders to create a city where all belong. We see co-governance as a relationship that really emphasizes our shared values of human dignity for all Coloradans, Black, white, brown, regardless of age, what's in our wallets, or our zip code. So to you, Mike Johnston and Kelly Brough, if you are elected, we look forward to building a genuine relationship with you. You will hear from us earlier and often, and we intend to continue letting you know what matters to us, always centering our common humanity within our visions and goals and demanding that you do so as well.
And speaking of what matters to us, you may find our platform inside your booklet. These are statements created by our federated committees. The statements hold strong values and visions for Denver, and we have shared these with both candidates in advance of tonight.
Now for the fun, exciting part. Before we ask our questions, Kelly and Mike, would each of you please introduce yourself and tell us why you decided to run for mayor of Denver, and you have only 2.5 minutes.
Each.
Each. Each.
Kelly, would you like to go first?
Am I on? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're used to 30 seconds for everything we say, so for us, 2.5 minutes is a dream. Thank you, first, for bringing us together, for the work you do in our city and our community every single day. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. For me, I'm running for a few reasons. One is this unique moment that we're in as a city. I see, do you want me to stand? Is that better? I see the challenges and issues that so many in Denver are struggling with today through the lens of my own family. And while I've shared this story throughout this campaign, it is exactly why I'm running. And so I'd like to share it with you. I lost my father to violent crime. So today, I see the families trying to put the pieces of their life back together after they've suffered such a great loss. And I understand how hard it is and the challenges they face. And it's why my team has focused on preventing crime and ensuring we're preparing a life for our community and our families where you can thrive. My family received government assistance when I was a kid, and I know the shame that so many in Denver feel today when they need assistance from their government. But the truth is, everyone I know receives help from someone, and I would be proud to be the mayor who provides the safety net that holds our Denver families long enough so they can get back on their feet and find their path, and I would never make them feel less than because of it. I'm a product of Denver public school, I'm a product of public schools, and I strongly support public schools. My parents didn't choose it to make a statement. They chose it because it was the only choice, as so many of our kids in Denver is same reality they face. And my husband struggled with an addiction our entire life together, and my girls and I lost him to suicide. And I know what helped my family get through those losses was community. And as your mayor, I'd be committed to rebuilding community. Those experiences built values in me, primarily one of resilience, service to others, commitment to community. And those values would guide me in every decision I made as your mayor. My experiences, I think, have also prepared me to be able to improve our lives and the challenges we face today. I served as John Hickenlooper's chief of staff when he was mayor of Denver. I've been the head of HR for the city, and my time is up. I look forward to this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mike, thanks, Mike.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to see you, and there is just a very strong spirit of faith in this room tonight, and so I'm going to change my opening comments and just share a quick story. I was raised in a family of faith, and faith played a very strong part in the career decisions that I made. But I just wanted, I was thinking as you were giving your sense of purpose, my favorite sermon of Dr. King's, if you know it, is the one he gave on April 3rd in Memphis, which if you remember, he was coming back to Memphis for the Poor Person's March around garbage workers needed access to fair treatment. And he was there that night, and he gives the famous mountaintop speech, which you remember it. I've been to the mountaintop, and I've looked over. What people forget often is in the middle of that speech is a small segment where he tells the story of when he and Coretta went to Israel and walked the road to Jericho themselves. And he tells the story of the Good Samaritan. And he tells the story having walked that road with Coretta himself, and he says, I never had respect for how dangerous of a road that actually was. He said, when I thought again about the story of the Good Samaritan, the story of the Good Samaritan is, of course, there is a man lying in the road that is injured, and there are, of course, the priest walks by and does not stop to help him, and the Levite walks by and does not stop to help him, and the Good Samaritan stops to help him. And King says, what happened for the Good Samaritan is that the priest and the Levite asked themselves the wrong question, which is, if I stop to help this man, what might happen to me? He says the Good Samaritan reverses the question and asks himself, if I don't stop to help this man, what will happen to him? And that is the question that this city faces, which is there are hard challenges we face. But at the end, as people of faith and people of humanity, we have to ask ourselves the right question the Good Samaritan asked, which is, if we don't stop to help the person who is homeless right now, sleeping in a tent, worried about freezing to death, what will happen to him? If we don't stop to help right now the teacher who is raising 2 kids and worried every month she's not going to be able to pay the rent and stay in a house that she can't afford, what will happen to her? This is a question for our city of not only will we be a great city, the question is, will we be a good city? Will we be a city guided by our values that while this city is on our watch, we will always ask ourselves the question, if we don't stop to help someone that needs us, what will happen to them? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you both, and also thank you for respecting the time guidelines. Yay. I am going to just clarify so everyone else knows as well, and you already have seen it, as we transition into the question-asking part of tonight, you will have still 2.5 minutes to answer each question that you get. We have a wonderful timekeeper, Sandra, here, who is going to let you know when you have 1 minute left, when you have 30 seconds left, and finally, when your time is up. And you've already shown how respectful you are of that time frame. If you, however, just happen to keep speaking past your time, Lee will gently tap you on the shoulder and ask for the microphone. And we also ask that you, the audience, please hold all your applause until the end of the question-asking portion of the whole forum. That will help us respect everyone's time tonight.
Okay, are we ready for this? Okay, let's get this night started. You will first hear from our Climate Justice Committee and from our committee member, Rosemarie Pesco.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Rosemary, and I'm a parishioner at St. Ignatius of Loyola Catholic Church. As a mother of 3 young boys, I worry about what Denver will look like as they come of age. According to the American Lung Association's 2023 State of the Air report, the Denver metropolitan area ranks 6th for the number of high ozone days when compared to 227 other metro areas across the country. Will we continue this trajectory? After reviewing your platforms on climate justice, we want to know how you will make a serious commitment to reduce our carbon output. And as much as I worry about the state of our climate for my sons, I know that they will not bear the worst of the climate burden, which will be disproportionately borne by kids and families of color who live in neighborhoods like Elyria, Swansea. So our question for you is, how will you raise and spend the hundreds of millions required to reach 90% fossil fuel free by 2035? 2035 would be 12 years from now, or 3 terms for either one of you in office.
And we will take turns with who goes first. So Mike, will you go first on this one?
Thank you so much. This is an existential question for us. And when you think about what you love about Denver, many of you will think about the access to the natural environment. But as you said, to think about Denver as a city where you're not going to know in the summertime if you can take your daughter or your mother outside because the air pollution levels could be so high it's actually a danger to them. We can't abide having a city that's supposed to be a pride of the state about beauty be able to suffer from that kind of climate challenge. So you asked, what do we do and how do we do it? The beauty is the taxpayers of Denver have been very generous to create the Climate Office, which now has about $500 million over that 12 years that we could spend on climate. The question is, what do we do with it? I'm very proud of the fact that over my terms in the Senate, I've been a resolute and committed fighter on climate justice. That means we both helped create the first renewable energy standards. We helped close coal plants around the state to be able to make sure we got to more renewable energy. We helped create the first incentives to adopt electric vehicles and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but there's a lot more to do. So I think there are 3 top priorities for me we would go about this. One is, we know that about 50% of all of the emissions that are coming from the city of Denver right now are coming from buildings, from commercial buildings. So our first step has to be to push aggressively to electrify those buildings. That means moving our space heating and our water heating and all of those buildings to electric. If those are electric, we can then get wind and solar as the major suppliers of that electric grid, and we can green that energy at a very rapid rate. That's issue number 1. That's true for new buildings of both residential and commercial. We also then have to go back to retrofit the existing buildings. I had an office up in North Park Hill in the Holly for 10 years, and like many old buildings in the city, our utilities bill was often more than our rent bill because you have inefficient double pane windows, you don't have good furnaces, we don't have the updated materials we need to keep our climate impact low. So we need to go back and retrofit those buildings to make sure we can actually create jobs, but also make our climate impact smaller from the emissions from those buildings. And then third, we need to actually reduce our usage of vehicles. That means both encouraging more and more people to use public transit. It means incentivizing us to move away from fossil fuel vehicles. I will not ever buy a new fossil fuel vehicle for the Denver vehicle fleet. We instead need to convert that entire fleet to be electric as well, support residents to do that, and allow more and more people to use public transit that make that easy and convenient and accessible so we can find ways to get out of our cars and onto public transit, and the cars that we do use are electric. Because if we don't take dramatic steps now to reduce that emissions, we know that already will be too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly.
I really do appreciate this question because it's also high math, but not really. I think the estimates are we need almost $200 million per year if we're going to achieve the goals that we have today. So $500 million in 12 years is not going to get us there. When you look at today, we've generously approved the city to have about $42 million we collect now in our climate tax. We also collect about $27 million from the trash fee that we've started to charge. I think that should be dedicated to climate. The whole point is an environmental impact by charging all of us. We have a parks fund that generates about $45 million. Some pieces of that I think would qualify to try to help us get to the $198 million. But we're challenged. I think part of our strategy in the short term could be the Infrastructure Jobs Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. These things are at risk as the federal government talks about the debt ceiling, but there's huge resources there. I would not only commit to work as a region to bring those resources back to this region and try to have an impact on the kind of investments we have to make, from electrifying our fleets, not just the city of Denver, we got to partner with DPS and RTD, because if we don't do this as a region, as a state, we will never impact those climate goals. So I would also work with others throughout this region to talk about their commitments to make this investment with us and to make this transition. I would also commit, you probably know, President Biden has made a commitment that those federal dollars require that 40% go to the communities who've been most negatively impacted historically. We would commit 50% of those funds out of Denver go into those communities where we're electrifying first. It will save our families money as we try to do that work. 50% of the impact of our air today, though, definitely comes from Suncor, also in those communities. And we know the fines and penalties are not addressing that issue. I think we have to get much more serious with the state about steps we need to take to address that. And then the bad news that a candidate is never supposed to tell you, but we're going to have to change our behavior. Driving is about 50% of this challenge. And I think that means us working together to figure out what does it take to get out of our cars, How should we be charging for RTD so we can remove that barrier and ensure more of us can make that choice to be able to get out of our cars? But I also think we still have a first and last mile challenge in that regard. And we'll talk about that later because I'm out of time.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for your responses. You'll now hear from Angela Azul from our Immigration Committee.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ángela Azul. Soy miembro del Comité de Migración de Together, Colorado, y también participo en varias organizaciones en Denver.
Good evening, my name is Angela Azul. I am a member of the Immigration Committee with Together Colorado, and I'm also involved with various organizations across Denver.
Para empezar la pregunta, me gustaría hacerles a los candidatos a alcalde. Es el programa DACA que se encuentra actualmente bajo ataque legal. Él puede ser anulado si es elegido alcalde. ¿Cuál sería su política sobre las personas indocumentadas que llaman hogar a la ciudad de Denver? ¿Y cuál es la responsabilidad de la ciudad de dar la bienvenida a la afluencia de migrantes que llegan a nuestra ciudad?
To begin, the question I would like to address to the mayoral candidates is, the DACA program is currently under legal attack and may be overturned. If elected mayor, what would be your policy on undocumented people who call the city of Denver home? And what is the city's responsibility to welcoming the influx of immigrants coming to our city?
Kelly, will you go first on this? Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So I'll first talk about the DACA issue. As your mayor, this is home. This is where our young people should be allowed to work, find a path, go to school, find their opportunity, and we need to defend as a community their ability and right to do that. But don't just take my word for it that I'll do it. I'll tell you what I did in 2010 when I was president and CEO of the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce. There, we led an organization to commit through a resolution this same commitment, that our DACA kids not only work here, but have a path to citizenship and a future in our country. We led that work around the nation and tried our best to influence Washington. I would commit to continue that work to get our private sector and nonprofit sectors committing to the same commitment to our kids. The second part of the question was about migrants. We've had, I think, 6,800 migrants come to our city. These are people seeking refuge in our nation. They came in legally to be here in our city, and I am very proud of how we've received them and tried to help them. I got the chance to volunteer at the Rudy Park Rec Center in December just to meet and understand the challenge and the issues. And the number one challenge, I think, is that we have a process for people seeking sanctuary, literally, in our nation. It takes 18 months for us to go through that process, and we tell you, you can't work while you're here. It's ridiculous. We have to demand and find a path forward that allows people who are waiting for their status in our nation to be able to work. And every single person I met with during that volunteer day, the first question they asked is, where could I work? The other thing I want to emphasize is this. What you are reminded when you spend time with someone who has risked their life to travel across a continent to get to this nation is what an incredible nation it still is. And I'm proud that people continue to seek their lives here, and I'm committed to helping them build their lives here.
Thank you. Mike.
Thanks. Mil gracias, Angela, por la pregunta y por tu servicio. So this issue was the reason I got into public office in the first place. I was a school principal up in Thornton, and I was leading a school where we were able to turn our school around, and 100% of our seniors were graduating from high school, and they were admitted to four-year colleges, only to find out that about half of those students were undocumented immigrants, which meant at that time in Colorado, they could not go to college unless they paid out-of-state tuition, which meant they were stuck. And so we had these kids who'd done everything they could do to be prepared, and now they couldn't actually go. And so I ran for the state senate to try to be a part of the coalition to change that law. That was how I got to know Together Colorado for the first time, because it was Together Colorado, it was CIRC, it was at that point Padres y Jóvenes Unidos, who were leading the coalition to try to change that law. I was proud to be the sponsor in 2013 when we finally, for the first time, changed that law, got the governor to sign it, and best of all, I got to drive back up to my old high school and see my former group of 8th graders, who were now seniors, be the first kids in their family ever to be able to get up on the stage, pick up a diploma, hug their mom, and know they had someplace to go. We now can't let those kids down when 10 years later they are on the job working in this city. And so let me tell you what I would do about DACA if it gets overturned. And this was something I was working on a year ago, long before I got into this race. There are 14,000 recipients of DACA right now in the metro area. 14,000 people who are working, supporting their families right now in this city. If that gets overturned, those 14,000 people will lose their jobs. That means they can't support their families. Those employers don't want to see them go. But here's what we can do, and here's what I would do. I would refuse to allow Denver to be a place where those folks lose their jobs. And so here's what I've proposed. I'm the only one to come out with a plan on this very issue. What we can do is we can create a public-private partnership that would be a consulting organization. We might call it 5280. And what would happen is if you worked at a wine coupe brewery and you lost your job as a server, you could come work for us as a consultant. We would go to wine coupe and say, what do you need? They say, we need 3 servers. We would deploy 3 servers from our staffing agency. Wine Coop pays us, and then we pay all of those employees on 1099s, where you do not have a social security card to be able to do that. You could stay employed, and even better, you could make this a co-op. You could make it owned by the employees, so any revenues that are generated, they get to keep. And we will dare the federal government to shut us down, because if they can't solve this problem, we will refuse to let our neighbors suffer as a result. We will keep them employed, keep them working, keep them on the job until the federal government can solve this.
Gracias.
You.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Vicky.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Vicki Wilhite, a member of Shorter Community AME Church and a member of Together Colorado's Transforming Justice team. We have a goal to significantly reduce mass incarceration in Colorado. We are disturbed by the fact that the United States has less than 5% of the world's population, but 25% of prisoners. We believe that any meaningful change would have to happen at the front end of the process, before people are even put in jail. So my question is, if elected mayor, how would you allocate funding to fight crime between hiring more police officers and programs addressing the root causes of crime, like housing, mental health, and poverty, and why?
And Mike, you have this one first.
Thank you. All right, great. Okay, all that in 2.5 minutes. So I wanted to talk about 4 things: prevention, intervention, treatment, and community-based policing. And so the first one is prevention, exactly what you said. We know this starts with how do we keep particularly young people out of the risk of being pulled into negative peer groups early on in their life. As a school principal, as someone at a community center in the North Park Hill, what we want to do is let every young person find their passion. We know right now your ability to find that passion, whether it is joining a sports team or a debate team or getting after-school tutoring, right now depends on your income. If your parents can't pay to get you access to that summer camp at the Science Museum, you don't discover that passion. So I would expand a program to offer summer school and after-school programming to students who receive free and reduced lunch so they can find that passion early on. The second step is intervention. I used to run an alternative school that in a juvenile detention center, so I worked with students who had made some of the worst decisions in their life. What we know is as soon as those young people make those mistakes, you have to wrap around services early and often. Multi-systemic therapy, in-home support for parents, supports for young people, access to adult mentors, incredibly important. The third is treatment. How do we think differently about how to support people right now? What we know is when you talk to our sheriffs, the overwhelming majority of folks who are in our correctional facilities right now are suffering from either mental health issues or addiction needs. And yet we put them in there with no real path to get better because they don't have the services they need. So what I would do is take 2 pods of our county jail and convert them. One into an inpatient mental health treatment facility, one into an inpatient addiction-based treatment facility. So those people who can come through a diversionary court, like a mental health court or a drug court, if that is your fundamental issue, know you can get to access to the actual service and treatment you're going to be able to need so you can get healthy, you can get back on your feet, you can get stabilized, you can get transitioned back into the community. And finally, we have to make sure we are actually sending the right first responders to the right situation. Yes, we do need more officers, but we really need more mental health workers. We need more EMTs and paramedics. If someone was in a mental health crisis, the last person you want to send is an officer. They're more likely to escalate the situation than de-escalate it. You want to have a mental health worker there. If someone's at risk of an overdose, you want to be able to send a paramedic or an EMT. And where we do have officers, we want to both recruit them from the communities they serve, and we want to put them back into roles where they are actually community members and community leaders, where you have a real community-based policing where you get to walk neighborhoods and build relationships, and I'm out of time.
Thank you.
I'm dyslexic, and I did not know this when I was in 3rd grade, and my teacher taught me to read, but we all know if you're not reading at grade level, now I know, if you're not reading at grade level in 3rd grade, it's the #1 predictor of not graduating from high school and of who goes to prison. Today, in Denver public schools, less than 1 in 4 of our kids of color and our low-income kids are reading at grade level in 3rd grade. I would partner with Denver Public Schools to ensure that our kids at 9 years old have a different path for their future and that they can see that path. But I wouldn't stop there. I would also look at how we could transition city positions, which we can't fill today, about 10% of them, to be paid apprenticeships and internships for every Denver Public School kid. This would give them the opportunity in high school to do much like what we do in Arupe High School here, where 2 days a week you're earning and learning, 3 days a week you're in school. It increases completion rates and it provides real path to economic opportunity, which we know is a driver. I would also focus on stable housing. When you look at our budgets today, our police department is about $254 million, and our host budget for housing stability is about $240 million. I would also look at our Parks and Rec department budget and monitor that. Today, it's about $223 million. And I mention this because we made our Parks and Rec free for kids under 18. And I was chief of staff the first year we did it. And we saw our kids actually were less likely to be a victim of crime and less likely to commit a crime. That kind of investment makes a huge difference in terms of after-school programming. I would monitor our libraries as potential for those funds to increase and to impact this issue so that we would start really addressing the challenges we face. In that police department budget, I would look at, and I've already proposed an expansion of doubling the size of mental health professionals responding to our crises, because we know people need mental health support and behavioral health supports, not police supports.
Thank you.
Both. And next is Eva Hutt with our Housing Committee.
Good evening. My name is Eva Hutt. I'm a member of Congregation Road of Shalom and Together Colorado's Housing Justice Committee. I care about housing because I want everyone to have the opportunity to live in the kind of neighborhood I do. I'm walking distance from my synagogue, bus stop, and grocery store, and my neighborhood is mixed use. Within 2 blocks, there's a small apartment building, some condos, single-unit houses, 2 office buildings, and a nice little shopette. I could not afford to buy my home today. I'm close to East Colfax, Denver's most diverse neighborhood, where the risk of displacement and gentrification is extreme and occurring. Our social justice team, Road Fade Tzedek, works on housing because it impacts our East Colfax neighbors and members of this congregation. Young families who can't afford to live here, people with sudden health issues at risk for foreclosure, people with disabilities priced out of the rental market. So we would like to know, In the past, Denver's zoning codes were used to separate communities by race, class, and culture. These relics of redlining persist and continue to harm our city. Understanding that zoning allows but does not require certain types of structures, how would you change current zoning codes to encourage all neighborhoods to have multiple housing options, such as single-family homes, duplexes, apartments, and income-restricted affordable homes, while also preventing displacement?
Kelly, you're up first.
Like you and so many families in Denver today, we probably couldn't afford to live in the home that we live in. I'm going to give you 3 examples of specific actions I would take to try to address this issue. But I want to start by saying today, Denver has become whiter and wealthier in the last 15 years. And we have to be intentional if we're going to change that and have a sustainable city that embraces everybody who works here being able to live here. Here's some of the steps I would take. First, I believe we need to really focus where we build around where we've made investments in transit. We know we should have more density around transit. It starts to address the previous question we talked about of air quality, water usage, transportation. And so focusing on that, I would not only help support the building of it there, but I would speed up our permitting process so it costs less once we build it, and we can reduce some of those costs associated with it. Secondly, I am a huge believer in home ownership. This is how families build wealth. Today, we know in Colorado, 41% of our Black families own a home versus 75% of our white families. In Denver, we have the opportunity to change that reality. I would build the housing that would help in every single neighborhood allow people to own homes again. I would focus on publicly owned parking lots. I got the chance to tour this actually in Munich. They built 100 affordable units, condos, if you will, for sale. And when you build it on a parking lot that we own, it's like land banking or a land trust, and it starts to make it affordable immediately. We have parking lots throughout the city in every neighborhood. I want you to think about our libraries, our police stations, our firehouses, our rec centers. If I could partner with Denver Public Schools, RTD, and we start to build a for-sale, more dense product again that allows families to live in neighborhoods they never could have afforded and our kids to go to schools they never could have accessed. I would also focus on making it easier to build accessory dwelling units so families could actually have income on properties they're in and reduce the gentrification we see today. I'm also interested in master leasing, which allows the city to help buy down the price of rent, but also be the first phone call before someone's evicted, so we can try to reduce and prevent people from becoming unhoused and instead keeping them housed.
Thank
Whew,
you.
I got that done in the
Thank you. Mike.
Okay, hang on to your hats. This is 3 big ideas in 2.5 minutes, so I'll try to go as fast as I can, but housing is incredibly important. If you're talking about how you're going to combat both affordability, gentrification, and displacement, then there are 3 things we have to do. One is affordable rentals. So first of all, what I would do is build 25,000 units that are permanently affordable to renters. That comes as a result of your support. Together Colorado helped back our effort last year to pass Proposition 123. That puts in resources we can use to build affordable housing. What this would do is mean that if you make $80,000 or $90,000 or $100,000 or less, you could get access to one of these units, and in these units, you never have to pay more than 30% of what you make. So if you are a first-year teacher who makes $40,000 a year, you don't have to pay more than $1,000 a month in rent. And your rent never goes up unless your income goes up. And that is deed restricted to be true for that unit forever. I don't care if a new landlord comes in and buys the place, can't jack up the rent 3 months later. That is the long-term protections we need for affordability on renting. The second is on home ownership, and this is where the biggest gaps around equity exist in our city and around the country. This is why I led the effort 2 years ago to start a fund called the Deerfield Fund, which was focused on closing the gap around Black home ownership. Right now, we know the biggest gap in opportunity home ownership is around families who don't have access to down payment. When you have systematically denied communities the ability to build wealth and pass on wealth for 400 years, it is not surprising they don't have access to $50,000 to be able to make a down payment. And so by just intervening to allow families to have access to down payment assistance, you have the income, you have the credit, you don't have a down payment to get into that home, you can open up the possibility of building wealth, and you can actually, for a family, close the entire wealth gap in 7 to 10 years. A wealth gap 400 years in the making, you can close in 7 to 10 years, helping family get access to home ownership. The third is community wealth building. We also have to stop the process you all alluded to earlier, which is we have communities that have been underserved for a long time. In comes a big developer, builds a bunch of stuff, they get rich, and all the families that live there get pushed out. What I would push for is a structure called neighborhood investment trusts, where you could allow those communities to own those developments. If Denver owns the land, we put land into the deal. All of our ownership of the land, say it's 30% of the deal.
We continue to see injustices throughout our city, which has cost the Denver residents and taxpayers millions of dollars in police brutality lawsuits. Together, Colorado aspires to be an anti-racist organization and strives to center race in all of our work for human dignity. Question: how would you bring a historical, structural, and current racial context to issues in your role as mayor of Denver? What personal and professional experiences related to race would inform your approach?
Mike, you're first on this.
Thank you. I think I'll talk first about the personal experiences and then about the structural approaches. I'm proud of the fact that every job that I've had since I left college has been dedicated to serving communities that have been underserved and communities that are communities of color. From my first job teaching high school English in Greenville, Mississippi, in a small town in the Mississippi Delta, to coming home and being a school principal to 3 different schools, to serving as a state senator in Northeast Denver, where when I first got elected, opened an office in the Holly, in what was then the most underserved part of our district, so that for those 10 years, people always knew exactly where to find me if they had questions, but mostly so I had the chance to listen each day to the issues and concerns that people had, over the last 3 years working at a foundation whose fundamental purpose was about serving communities who have been underserved and making sure kids and families have access to opportunity. What that work reveals for us is that there is far more work left to be done than we may have imagined. When I first started working in Mississippi, people would say, wow, what's it like to work in a place that's so racist? And then I would come home and look at the fact that if you look at the state that has the worst outcomes for kids of color trying to get through and graduate from college, that state is not Mississippi. It's not Alabama, it's not Tennessee, it's the state of Colorado. And we know those gaps have been created here not by race-neutral policies, and they won't be fixed by race-neutral policies. That's why I think we're going to have the courage to look at where those structural components of racism are and how we effectively undo them. I'll just say this was when we first built the Deerfield Fund. This was the idea of a race-based fund had not been built yet in this kind of way to close the wealth gap. And we went to banks. Many banks wouldn't take us because they said they wouldn't do a race-based fund. We found one bank that would. It was First Bank. And when we did that, we then started a momentum to say, if one state can do this, if one city can do this, the rest of the country can. After that, we then said, you know what, we should support those partners. So we moved all the assets from our foundation, from the bank we were in, to First Bank. Because if you're going to stand up and show your values to stand with us on dismantling systems of racism, we should, as leaders, make sure and support and build those organizations that do. So for me, this work is going to be about listening, and listening early and often to communities of color about what their experiences are, what their frustrations are, what the needs are, and then being able to look at not just what the lived experience is, but what the systems are that build those experiences, and be courageous and clear-eyed about what it's going to take to tear them down.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Kelly.
I just have to say, I do support minimum wage. I do support paid family leave. I provided it to my employees at the chamber, and I would ask to be better represented in my beliefs. Let's talk about my personal experience in life around race and what I intend to do as your mayor. My husband was Ojibwe, which is a Native American tribe. We grew up in Montana. We moved to Denver because in rural Montana, a white woman and an indigenous man would be very challenging. So in 1986, we came to the city, and frankly, it was much better for us as a family. That said, at a young age, at 22, I started to fully understand my privilege as a white woman because I saw it just by experiencing life next to my husband. We had 2 daughters. One of my daughters can pass as white. My other daughter did not. My experience in life was you prepare your daughter who is not white passing in a different manner because her life and experience was different. Every time we went to the airport, I could guarantee you my husband and my youngest daughter were pulled out of that line. My older daughter and I walked through. And I think, again, as a mom, it made me extremely aware of the racism in our nation and the challenge. And to love someone so close, I think it embedded in every single position I've been in. I look through a racist lens as best as I can. But I also know I have my own blind spots. And I think maybe that's the most important thing I learned. So I've spent my career making sure I bring people around me, not just to be on committees or to be on my teams, to be at the highest level, guiding every single decision, pointing out the flaws and oversights and what I'm not seeing. I would do that as your mayor. That work resulted in some of the things I'm most proud of that I did at the Chamber. I built an entire arm of the Chamber of Commerce that focuses on nothing else but the inequities we see in our economy around race and gender. And I'm extremely proud of that work. I would hope to be able to build the same kind of systems so we could address these issues as a city. And I really appreciate your question. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers.
Thank you, Kelly.
And Jill?
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ángela Azul, soy un líder comunitario con Juntos Colorado en el área de Mombelo. Aquí en Juntos Colorado, la cogobernanza es importante para nosotros.
Good evening. My name is Ángela Azul. I am a community leader with Together Colorado in the Montbello area. Here at Together Colorado, co-governance is important to us.
Ahora, para la última pregunta, limitamos su tiempo a 1 minuto cada uno.
And for this next question, you will be limited to 1 minute each.
Si es elegido alcalde, incorporará voces típicamente excluidas del proceso político en su proceso de toma de decisiones y cómo lo haría. Por favor, conteste en inglés para que el intérprete pueda interpretar a nuestros miembros español hablantes.
If elected mayor, will you bring the voices typically excluded from the political process into your decision-making process? And if so, how? And please, we understand you might speak Spanish. Please answer in English for our members.
And that's Kelly first. And you have 1 minute this time.
I'll start by just, since I have 1 minute, giving you an example of how I would share decision-making. In identifying cabinet members, which are the people who run the major departments in our city, I would engage community. And I would engage an extremely diverse community, including our Spanish speakers, but also when you look throughout our city, the diversity from people of color to LGBTQ, the entire list of diversity. Each of those cabinet positions, I would put together a stakeholder group who would help identify not only the most critical issues that I have to address or pay attention to in that department, but who are the top applicants you think I should be interviewing to hire in those positions. I would do this for 2 reasons. One, it attracts way more diverse applicants, people who are interested in that work because they believe they have a chance of actually coming through a process where diverse stakeholders are helping identify the talent. 2, I think it makes for better operations later, where there's buy-in and relationship right out of the gate with communities that we need to be working with and ensure we're partnering closer together. Every single structure in my cabinet would be that kind of formation of bringing diverse views together, and not just diverse views, people who fundamentally disagree with how we should be doing the work so we can find a path forward together, much like the mission of this very organization.
Thank you, Kelly. Mike?
Thank you so much. So I'll give 2 examples of what I've done as what I would do going forward as well. I think the key first is being accessible, and being accessible to the people who are farthest away from avenues of power, who aren't going to be able to necessarily get off work to be able to come to an event or know about it in advance. And so that was why I opened a community office when I was in the state senate. That was why I would have office hours around the city where you're in places where people can come to find you and drop in that are convenient for them. late at night after shifts or on weekends or times that are accessible. The second thing I did, I think the transition is important. I think the governing is even more important. When you're actually trying to solve the hard problems of the city, how you're getting input from all those people that have the lived experience. So I built what we call the Citizens Cabinet, which is on any given issue, whether it was criminal justice, whether it was workforce, we had a group of citizens who had lived experience with that. Someone who had been in prison and now was back in the community trying to find a job and couldn't get one. Or someone who had been unemployed for a while and trying to get access to work training but couldn't find the right opportunity or the right program. Being able to have people both with lived experience and with background influence the policy decisions is how I would approach it.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hand it back to Ileana and Lee.
So now you get to clap. Wow. Well, thank you to so many. Thank you to Kelly Brough and to Mike Johnston for being here, for sharing with us. And thank you to all of our amazing question askers and the people that helped to come up with the questions. There were lots of teams involved with all of that. So thank you to everyone. And thank you to the audience for listening. We are really grateful to get to hear your visions for the city of Denver. As we come close to the end of the forum, we want to be sure that you get to hear from a very, very special person. It is my distinct honor to invite Sharon Bridgeforth to call us to action.
AME Church? You still can't? Okay. All right. Now, I know I'm pretty good about talking without a microphone, but they asked that I use one. Good evening. As I said before, I'm Sharon Bridgeforth, member of Shorter Community AME Church and president of Faith in Colorado, the political arm for Together Colorado. I am also a part of the Transforming Justice team with Together Colorado. I would like to thank all of you for being here tonight. You look fantastic. Practically every seat is filled. It's wonderful. And we are glad that you were here tonight to hear our candidates' responses to our vision for Denver. Do you agree with that vision? Let me hear you. I know you can do better than that. To the leaders of Together Colorado, thank you for your hard work in preparing for this great event. For those of you who have attended our public meetings in the past, we never let you leave without giving you something to do. Am I right? All right. Before I give you the call to action, I want to share some very important information with you. Number one, this is the first time in over a decade we are voting for the mayor and all city council representatives. Did you hear me? Okay. It will probably be a long time before we see that again. Number two, the position of mayor is very powerful. Many of the most progressive and innovative public policy ideas flow from Denver and could move across the state, as it has happened before. The April turnout was extremely dismal. It's not funny. Only 38% of those who were registered voted. It's not funny. I hope that you weren't one of those who didn't vote. Don't hang your head and don't look around at anybody else. I want you to know there's still time for you to participate, and it's even more crucial at this time. In addition to the mayoral race, there are 3 critical city council positions that are also in a runoff. Districts 8, 9, and 10. Raise your hand if you live in one of those districts. If you all I'm gonna let you all look around. Keep raising your hand. I want you to look around. There's probably almost half of us from these 3. What do we need to do? We need to vote. Thank you. Whoever said that, say it again. All right now. This brings me to the call to action. Are you ready? Yeah. You receive one of these cards, take it out, and get your pen ready, because you're not going to be able to take this home and fill it out 2 days from now. We normally don't get a good turnout. We don't get enough turnout back from these cards. Everybody's going to sign them, or either you won't get to go home to your children. Okay? Now, hold it and have your pen ready. Voting is how we have power. We are the ones that will shape what this city looks like now and into the future. No one can afford to sit this one out. If you don't vote, you can't complain. Now I'm going to say this one more time. No one can afford to sit this one out. You can't complain if you don't vote. Achieving our vision for Denver, where we will all belong, depends on you and your active participation. I am urging each one of you today to participate with Together Colorado or Faith in Colorado between now and Election Day, to bring people into the election process. For me, many people died so I could vote, and I have only missed one election, and I will be 72 on May 13th. Now, I'm going to give you some steps. I know that y'all are probably ready to go home, but this is one of the most important parts of the evening. I know all of you have your card and your pen, and I know that others have gone around, and if you don't have a card and a pen, raise your hand. Okay. Remember, we need your family, friends, and neighbors to vote, and you're instrumental in this happening. Voting is very easy, so there's no excuse. Ballots come to your home. Volunteer to pick up your neighbor's ballots and drop them off. On May 13th, which is the first box that you can check on your card, we will have a short training and then conduct a door-to-door get out the vote in Northeast Denver. Fill out the card and check that box if you can help with this effort. Now, for the second box, if you can't make it on the 13th, which is my birthday, so I won't be there, you can learn virtually how to door knock in your own neighborhood and maybe even meet some new neighbors. Now, for those of us who may not be as mobile as we used to be to walk our neighborhoods, no worries. There will be opportunities for you too. Our democracy depends on your active participation in this voting cycle. This is serious business, folks. The lives of our families and communities are at stake, and it's up to us as to what our city will look like on June 7th. Please complete this card now. Finally, if, like me, you have an appetite to get more politically involved, please join Faith in Colorado by checking the last box, and we'll be in touch with opportunities. How many of you have not completed your cards? Remember, I'm not going to let you go home to your kids, and I'm sure the babysitter won't be happy about that. Please, everyone, please, we implore you to complete the card. And when you're done, just hold it up. And someone will come to get it. I want to thank you so much for your attention this evening at this great event, but also for completing your cards. Now, I don't want you to put them in your purses and your pockets, okay? Because you're just going to go home and throw them in the trash. We know that. We want you to fill them out now. There aren't enough cards. Look at our baskets. And there's hundreds of you all in here. Sign that card. Sign that card. And we're running late. And folks who know me at Together Colorado, I will keep you here. Sign that card. This runoff election, like I said, is going to change our lives, our community's lives, our neighbors' lives. And I want you to go home and tell somebody what you heard tonight and get them fired up about voting. 38% of registered voters who did not vote. It is shameful. Sign that card. I want Minister Sharon Battle to come up so that she can pray us out of here. Now, see, I got folks leaving. Did you all fill out your cards? Don't leave. We're getting ready to pray. Who doesn't want to pray? All right. I'm going to have Minister Sharon Battle to come up now for our closing prayer and blessing of the candidates. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, sometimes that's because the preacher's been effective. I'm going to ask all the faith leaders, the clergy, to come up and stand behind the two candidates, please. Oh, wow, y'all are diligent. In faith work, prayer is a powerful tool. In order to pray, we need bodies. We need people. You are the folks, you are the communities that make up the folks that pray for us. We're asking you to allow us to pray for you. The thing I appreciated about both of you, you both spoke of community. You both spoke respectfully. We started with prayer, and now that's how we're going to end. Candidate Kelly, candidate Mike, we pray a blessing over you. We ask the blessing of God over your physical bodies and family, that you are fit for this journey. Oh God, we ask your blessing on these two candidates' minds and their spirits. First, that they will put justice and righteousness above all. And with every decision they make, allow and remind them to serve with humility. Remind them, oh God, at every step to serve all zip codes in every community with human dignity, justice for all people living in Denver, of all faith traditions, housed or unhoused, incarcerated or not, whether Black, brown, indigenous, white, or poor. Bless them to be wholly committed to serving all of Denver with compassion, justice in every community, no exceptions. And now, we as faith leaders in Denver ask all of you here in this audience to bless them with us. Mike and Kelly, we commit, no matter which of you is our mayor, we commit to pray for you, to lend our ear to your prayers, to vigorously hold you accountable for the care and just service to all living in our city. We ask God to bless and keep you throughout this journey. We pray for the one that does carry the light as mayor, to stay on the path to serve you, O God, and our city honorably. In whatever way, you, Kelly, and you, Mike, whatever way these words would be communicated in your faith tradition, may the blessings of God overtake you. Amen. Thank you. Now, if you pause just a minute, if you're walking, walk slowly so you can hear our MCs close us out. It's really important, and we appreciate that you stayed till the end. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. What a beautiful closing from our minister, Sharon Battle. It touches my heart. Let's give her a round of applause. Well, we're at the end of the evening, and we want to thank all of you again for being here with us tonight. And we want to thank the candidates for joining us. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Mike. We wish both of you the best in the runoffs. And just as a reminder, please complete your card. and turn them in. And if you have the interpretation equipment, if you would turn that in before you leave, that would be great. There still are people picking up the cards as you're going out. Remember to vote. It's very sacred to me to be able to vote. And I encourage your friends and your neighbors, please vote. Have a safe night, everyone, and thanks again for being here with us.